Good afternoon. Today, as always, very interesting information. Most occasions named puzzling in nature are disregarded as stuff and drivel. Properly so as well. Nonetheless, there are special cases that puzzle individuals so much they can't quit discussing it on the web and with their companions. A genuinely ongoing model is the vanishing of flight MH370. While it's regularly acknowledged that the carrier collided with the ocean, it stays obscure why precisely that occurred. On this rundown, 8 puzzling occasions that were sufficiently astounding to make the news. Is it true that they are stuff and garbage as well, or is there a genuine secret behind these occasions? Peruse on and choose for yourself. 1. For reasons unknown, there are a few triangles around the globe that appear to be dark openings of puzzle and demise. Maybe the most celebrated of these is the Bermuda Triangle, which is indicated to have gobbled up many boats and airplanes. In Nevada there is one more triangle which covers an immense region near Area 51. Here in excess of 2,000 planes have disappeared, apparently like a phantom, with the vast majority of them never found. The most notable missing plane and pilot story is the one that recounts extremely rich person Steve Fossett, an exceptionally experienced pilot, who disappeared on the California-Nevada outskirts in 2007. The destruction in the portion of Fossett's remaining parts were found a year later. The purpose behind the accident stays obscure, regardless of a huge number of hypotheses including downdrafts. Different vanishings in the Nevada Triangle incorporate a B-24 plane that disappeared in 1943 and was discovered submerged in a store in 1955. In 1957, another military plane disappeared, and after a broad however unbeneficial search, the pilot of the plane was proclaimed dead. Be that as it may, 54 days after the accident, the pilot contributed up Kings Canyon National Park. He said something had surprisingly detonated inside his plane and he launched out from the plane. He made do on fish and chased little creatures for nourishment until he in the end arrived at the park. There are a few hypotheses on why the Nevada Triangle appears to gobble up planes, including outsiders, mountain waves and so forth, however actually yet to be uncovered. 2. 18-year-old Joshua Maddox was a free soul who observed his own standards and was tremendously cherished by his loved ones. Being an immense fanatic of nature, Joshua frequently took strolls and talked about one day going on an extraordinary experience. His siblings' suicide in 2006 hit him hard, however he figured out how to begin pushing ahead once more. At that point in 2008, Joshua vanished in the wake of telling his sister he was going for a walk. Joshua's destiny stayed obscure for a long time. In 2015, Chuck Murphy at long last crushed his wood lodge that hadn't been utilized for a considerable length of time. Another property improvement would have been raised in its place. Inside the remaining parts of the fireplace when they pulled it down, was the collection of Joshua Maddox. He was confined up in the fetal situation inside the fireplace, his legs over his head. The lodge where the disclosure was made stood not exactly a mile from Joshua's home, and dissection uncovered that Joshua had no medications in his framework and there was no outward injury on his body. A decision of inadvertent passing was made after a coroner inferred that Joshua had moved into the smokestack from above, stalled out and kicked the bucket of hypothermia. Toss Murphy couldn't help contradicting this, saying Joshua was wearing just a slender shirt when his body was found, and the remainder of his garments were collapsed up by the chimney inside the lodge. Murphy accepted injustice was to be faulted and that somebody constrained Joshua into the smokestack. Reality stays slippery. 3. In 2017, recently discharged archives uncovered that an authority in Pittsburgh had among his assortments two Apollo-period NASA PCs just as many tapes. These tapes may have had a connect to obscure data identifying with the investigation of Room, yet we'll never know now, since NASA requested the tapes to be devastated. It is accepted that the gatherer who put away the PCs and tapes in his carport kicked the bucket in 2011. It is said that a man searching for scrap metal connected with NASA in December 2015 after he occurred across two enormous PCs and 325 information tapes dated somewhere in the range of 1967 and 1974. The PC marks demonstrated that they initially had a place with the Goddard Space Flight Center. It stays obscure how the PCs and tapes wound up in a carport in Pittsburgh, as the PCs were extremely enormous and substantial. The Inspector General at NASA redacted all data identifying with names, locations and contact subtleties before discharging any reports to the public. NASA's case is that the sequential number engraved on the PCs don't coordinate. Their records didn't agree with scheme. Scholars have persuaded the space organization had something to cover up, thus their request to annihilate the tapes. They are presently addressing whether the authority was genuinely only a gatherer. Since he clutched the tapes for more than 40 years, the data on the tapes will likewise perpetually stay a secret. 4. Puzzling items distinguished as automatons flying over Colorado's eastern plains stood out as truly newsworthy in December 2019, and sightings proceeded into 2020. Upwards of 23 automaton action reports were gotten by police somewhere in the range of 6 and 13 January. However, the automatons stay unidentified and it is as yet obscure who was working them. It was first announced that an enormous band of automatons would drift around 300 feet, noticeable all around over upper east Colorado, and afterward begin flying around in square arrangements. It was evaluated that there were around 17 automatons and that they were dynamic somewhere in the range of 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. around evening time. Nearby specialists were met, including the Air Force and the Department of Defense. However, none knew why the automatons kept appearing. Drone sightings have since been accounted for from Nebraska, California and North Carolina. Yet now a few news sources are asserting that the reports may have originated from misguided judgments. They have utilized models, for example, a pilot professing to have struck an automaton in 2015 and it was later uncovered he really hit a fledgling. Another pilot revealed having hit an automaton close Heathrow Airport. Yet it was later settled he may simply have hit a plastic bag, and now the automaton sightings have everything except stopped, and it appears to be far-fetched that the riddle will be fathomed. Were there automatons in the first place? Furthermore, if there were, the reason were there such a large number of? What's more, where are they now? 5. Las Vegas occupants were shocked to see a pigeon with a minor cattle rustler cap stuck to its head strolling in the avenues towards the finish of 2019. At that point he was joined by another pigeon likewise brandishing a small cap. Normally, film of the pigeon circulated around the web in a matter of moments. In any case, pigeon rescuers were not exactly diverted, taking into account that the paste used to adhere the caps to the pigeons' heads were hurting their skin and quills. One of the feathered creatures kicked the bucket soon after. In January 2020, the unknown pigeon adorner struck once more, this time with a small sombrero struck to the leader of another pigeon. It stays obscure who the individual is that is staying caps onto the leaders of these feathered creatures. However, authorities are examining as they are worried just plain silly prosperity. Subscribe to the channel and click on the bell. See you soon, and don't be sick.